Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm super out of practice with this. Isn't that funny how you can get out of practice with something? I mean, it's been 5 months and 1 day since we did our last official Daily Dose episode. I think we've gone on twice since then, but wow, really sorry about that. Here we are. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well too, thank you. So we did something this past weekend that was really delightful. Dr. Mary, do you want to set this up a little bit?
No, because this is your work. It's not like I can't remember what we did. I just think it's more important for Dana to talk about it because she's the driving force behind this.
Okay, that's very kind of you.
Well, it's true.
Okay.
This is all you.
Well, it's all us, but it is my content, I guess. So when I said that we'd been on a couple of times since we ended Daily Dose, it was to talk about this thing that I created based on some other work I've done called Discover Your Sober Spark. And it's really for couples where one or both are either in sobriety or have just elected to step away from alcohol and who need to figure out sort of what's next for them. Because when Mass came home from rehab, we really had no idea. Like what's our thing? You know, what are our hobbies? How do we pass the time? How do we engage and interact with each other in ways that aren't like scheduled time to have serious conversations
or triggers?
Yeah. So we had some work to do, and then one of the many incredible gifts that came from Daily Dose was that it allowed us to have quick conversations for 56 weeks every day, and for the next year and a half, twice a week around something important. And you even said to me probably 3 weeks ago how much you kind of missed this intentional conversation that comes from doing work like this.
Because most of the time we were racking our brains trying to decide what to talk about, but it was a conversation.
Well,
and it drove other things.
It was often conversations we would not have had without the expectation of showing up with some kind of content. So we learned a ton that I just don't think we would have learned any other way.
Nope.
So at any rate, that inspired the creation of Discover Your Sober Spark. And we tried to run a bunch of them leading up to this past weekend. But then this weekend, we actually had a couple of couples join us. And so I've set it up now. Will you talk about the experience from your perspective? Because here's just one thing I think was really interesting for me to observe. Maz has done no spark work, none. So it's not like he has this deep background with it like I do. So it was new for you as well. And I think you were looking for your notes.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So just talk a little bit about what it was like for you to show up and do spark work.
It was incredibly interesting. I'm not just saying that because I'm sitting here next to the creator of this, but the way Dana put this together. So there's 3 rounds. The first one is, as an individual, there are 8 things that you have to look into and think, what am I doing to preserve these 8 things? Or what am I doing to achieve these 8 things in life? And very nicely in an order they were put together. And the first thing was mental and physical health. Now, I commented on this because if you haven't got that, you really can't do anything else. So that was first. So your mental and physical health, followed by...
Don't go through all of them, please. Specifically, because I want people to do the work.
There were 7 more.
Thank you.
One of them I will talk about was funny because I made a comment on it. It was wild pursuits. What on earth is really going to drive you secretly? So But the point I wanted to make was mental and physical health was up there. And then, what would you like to do that will make you happy? Now, then you talk about those. In the second part, you take these 8 criteria and do them as a couple.
Individually around your
think
couple.
about
Yes.
what would to embrace your partner. How would you fulfill these? And they're all slightly different. Your mental and physical health, for example, encompassed your partner. All right. I can, as we've all talked about, I've got my own oxygen mask on now. How can I help my partner put hers on or theirs on, or and so forth? But I want to bring up Wild Pursuits because years ago I would have put something like internationally renowned music critic or something, but I actually put presidential science advisor because I think I've grown as a person. But that was
your individual one.
That was my individual Wild Pursuit.
Are you done?
And then you come back together and talk about those. And then the third set is, things like what would you want to do moving forward?
Yeah, it's really intended to, thank you for that.
That's okay.
It's really intended to guide you through this process of what sparks for me individually around these areas, what sparks for me thinking about us as a couple, what are the things that we might pick up, adopt, try, embrace, and then you come together as a couple and you really say, well, is there overlap? Are there areas? Did you say something in either your individual or your couple section that I thought, oh, I want to do that too? For instance, what if I said in my individuals that one thing I want to do is I want to start doing yoga once a week because I know that I'm getting my heart rate up. I know that spin is doing cardio for me. I know that when we're going walking, it's good for me, but I want something that it's gentle, restorative, and physically active, but also engaging me mentally. Okay, so let's say I say that in my mental and physical pursuits. Well, maybe Maz hears that and thinks, you know what? I would love to do that too. And so what we do then together is we commit to finding a yoga class that works in both our schedules that we can commit to going to together. Maybe Maz wouldn't have thought of yoga, or maybe Maz would have thought of yoga, but what came up for him was, and if you're a longtime Daily Dose watcher, you know this story, but I went to see Maz in rehab on one of the assigned days. And he walked into this big group room where I was sitting. And the only thing I could think was that he'd been in some sort of like a barb roll. He was limping. He was hunched over. He didn't have any bruises on him. But I said to him, what happened to you? And he said, yoga. They had done some super intense yoga class.
They threw us into now is yoga positions for Navy SEALs.
So Maz likely would have thought about yoga and dismissed it, but hearing me talk about why I wanted to do it might have inspired him, and then that becomes a couple's spark for us. So it was really fantastic, and probably my favorite thing about it was one of the husbands who I had never met got on, and you could feel even through the screen that he was a little bit uncomfortable. He was there because his wife basically said, look, Dana asked if we would do this. I'm interested in it. You come and do it. So he was there. And one of the first things he said was, I don't really like stuff like this. And I really appreciated how honest he was. I thought that was not an easy thing to do. And I really appreciated it. So we got to the end of the 2 hours and we asked everybody how they were feeling. And his answer was
that he really enjoyed it.
That he really enjoyed it. And he found the process of doing this work in a group less stressful than doing it by himself, which really surprised me, because one of the things that I have often thought about was, I bet for a lot of men, this is going to feel way too vulnerable to write down these areas and then talk about them out loud. But for him, it was actually, it lessened the anxiety. So I found that really fascinating. Anything that you thought was interesting or takeaways from it?
Here's something that it didn't happen for this, but for the work Dana does in general, I sometimes overhear a lot of it. So I know what Dana does for this. So I actually a couple of weeks ago in one of our last duty days at MSUM, I was on this big retreat workshop thing to write writing intensive course assessment content. And the whole thing was terrifying to me because we had to spend 4.5 hours in a room at the end of it together working on it. And I actually took lessons in what I overheard Dana say about, just think about, well, your spark, think about what you're interested in. In other words, knuckle down and do the work. And then in a group session, throw ideas about it. And that's what got me through that, I think. And then actually having to do a real spark that, find your sober spark thing, I actually found really enjoyable because I had some kind of background knowledge to it. So to hear someone come in straight away and goes, well, I don't like this. Oh, it was good. I know exactly how it felt.
Yeah. What's really interesting is I'd never done the work. This was the first time in all this time of me asking other people to do it that I had done it too. So that was valuable for me because some of the categories were really hard. Some of them were very easy, but it was, you should always do your own work before you ask other people to do it. So on the whole, I felt like it was a great night and the participants enjoyed it. And it was really fun to spend that time with two other couples where we weren't doing what so often happens, which was talking about the weather and our kids' schedules and how busy work is. None of that was discussed. For 2 hours, we had smart, interesting, compelling, engaging conversation. And it really felt like we made a connection. I would be happy to spend time with either or both of those couples in the future, which was really fun.
Here's two things I got out of this. One of them was the fact that some of my criteria I put for myself when we went to do it, think of your partner, I had the same answers, which means you're kind of in tune with something, which I felt happy about. But the other one, one of the things I'll always remember is one of our couples, about 80 minutes in, their children were getting restless and came, Mum, Dad, what are you doing? We've been out here for like over an hour and you're in there doing something that doesn't involve us. What's happened? You're making us nervous.
It's true.
And it was brilliant.
It was. I felt like it was so lovely to reconnect with you again in this way, because I think we did what so often happens. We ended Daily Dose and we thought, well, we'll keep having these conversations, even though we don't technically have to. And have we had those conversations? Not many.
Not many, but we do.
Occasionally, but not often. And so it was just another one of those reminders of, boy, if you want to engage with your partner, whether you're doing it through this work or something else, you have to treat it like you treat a meeting or like you treat an assignment. And that feels calculated and not very spontaneous. But guess what? Life is busy and it's easier to kick these conversations down the road, even if they're conversations you want to have. It's easier to push them off, to say, oh, you know what? My day got too busy. What's one thing I cannot do today? Oh, this, and then not do it. It's really important to do this work. So the website is there, danadelval.com/sober-spark. We don't have another one scheduled right this minute, but I think we'll do one maybe towards the end of the summer. If you're interested in it, sign up for my newsletter, danadelval.com/discover, I think. Sign up for the newsletter and then you'll get notifications of when these are coming up. And my invitation to you, our invitation to you, is give it as a gift to your partner, even if you think your partner doesn't want to do it. 2 hours is not such a huge commitment that you can't somehow get them to show up. The only criteria to the evening is that whoever might be stepping away from alcohol can't be in the throes of addiction, because we are not equipped to deal with
Yeah.
that. And it won't work for you and your partner or anybody else. So you can be newly sober, you can be sober curious, you can be somebody who's just decided you want to see what might we do that doesn't involve alcohol, even if you're both still able to drink, and just thinking about other opportunities. Nobody's going to ask you to make your "I'm Dana Del Valle and I'm an alcoholic" claim.
No. Another thing is, we had a lovely lunch with a wonderful person from Share House yesterday who heard about us because someone told her about us. So if you actually bizarrely aren't interested in this, then you are a fool. But don't be a huge fool. If you know someone is interested in it, tell them.
I don't think you're a fool. Not really.
But you know what I mean. Spread the word that way. It's still, it still gets things. If you honestly think, you know what, I know this could help someone I know, do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's time to wrap up. It was lovely to be back on with you. Good to see you in this format, Dr. Mary.
And you.
And really, if you're interested, let us know, and we could schedule one sooner than later if it's something that you want to do. We might even do one in person if it's all local people, but it works really well over the internet. So, last thing. So nice to see you guys again. Thanks, John.
Thanks,
nice
John.
to see you too. Get out to your garden. I'm looking for today's posts of what's blooming. So everybody else, have a great day, and we'll just see you when we see you.
See you later.